Welcome everyone to our virtual visit series. My name is Allison Campbell with Estrella Consulting, and I am so excited to welcome Ginny Dudiak from Elon University. Our virtual visit series is designed to introduce you all to a variety of colleges and allow you to get to know the institutions and their staff in a more personal way. So thank you, Ginny, for joining us. Do you mind just taking a few moments to tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you have worked at Elon?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Ginny Dudiak. I apologize if you can hear a clicking noise above me. They're doing some work. My name is Ginny Dudiak. I'm Associate Dean of Admissions at Elon University, which is also my alma mater. I graduated in 2014 with a degree in psychology. I was a tour guide, like many people in this industry, and so I've worked in admissions ever since graduation and working specifically with students from Ohio and Western Pennsylvania since then. But I've had the great pleasure of traveling across the country and recruiting many students to Elon, which has been such a joy and a pleasure. So this is again my 11th year at Elon, and specifically at Elon in our admissions office.
That's great. So actually, Jamie, one of my Estrella colleagues, and I had the pleasure of meeting Jenny a few months ago while we visited Elon, and it is just a beautiful, beautiful campus and definitely a special place. We were so impressed. And we've been talking a little bit before we started recording that we see Elon has really become a popular school for Estrella students, for Ohio students, and we talk a lot about like the Southern migration and students wanting to, I don't know why they would want to get away from some of the colder, more brutal winters and just find somewhere that's a little bit more temperate year round. So Elon is beautiful. If you have not visited, make sure if you are interested to check it out. So for those that are watching that don't know a lot about Elon, can you tell us a little bit about your location, your enrollment, just the type of institution that Elon is? Any need to
Yeah.
know facts?
Absolutely. So we are a medium-size private institution in Central North Carolina. So medium for us means that we're right at 6,400 undergraduate students. We have about 800 graduate students on top of that. We are situated in the town of Elon, North Carolina. It's a small college town of about 12,000 outside the university, but we are situated really in the city of Burlington, North Carolina. So Elon is a suburb of Burlington. We're very much a suburban campus. So we do have our own quaint college town, local shops and restaurants right off our main campus. But again, that access to Burlington. So we're also 5 minutes from a Target, a Walmart, a Best Buy. In terms of our proximity to other locations in North Carolina, we're about 20 minutes from Greensboro, North Carolina, about 45 minutes from the Raleigh-Durham area. But the reason people come to North Carolina for college is that we are 2 hours from the mountains and 3 hours from the beach. So really easy weekend getaways for students. But by and large, we find that our students are not coming from North Carolina. Most of them are joining us from the Northeast. Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania are all really strong pulls for us. And then we are seeing tremendous growth, kind of to your point, in the Midwest, Texas, Illinois, Colorado is sending us a ton of students right now, as well as the West Coast. So we're excited about that growth, but most of our students are joining us from the Northeast. We're considered a comprehensive institution. I typically tell families they don't have to retain that part of it, but what that means is that we fall in between a small private liberal arts school and an R1 research institution like an Ohio State or a big state school. So we have a liberal arts core curriculum associated with our graduation requirements, but we also have strong professional schools in business, communication, engineering, nursing, education as well. So really great programs across the board. So you've got that flexibility where you do have this core curriculum, but you can pursue a business program, and a lot of our students choose to do that.
Yes. Yeah. We loved just the emphasis that there was when we visited. You mentioned like the liberal arts curriculum. So you have the opportunity to kind of explore and discover what your interests might be, as well as the focus on some of those like key majors that we see that are really trending. That business building was so impressive. Um, it was really amazing. So you said that the trends that you're seeing as far as where you're drawing your students from a lot from the Northeast and we're seeing a lot from the Midwest. Are you finding that any particular majors are becoming more popular at Elon?
Yeah, so we 4 years ago introduced a nursing program. Nursing is hot right now as a major across the country, and so the opportunity to do nursing in this liberal arts style environment where you can still study abroad, you can still have kind of this classic college experience is really appealing for people. So we see that as a big draw. Engineering is one that's growing for us. We've had a 4-year ABET accredited engineering program now for quite some time. We've maintained a dual degree option as well, which is 3 years at Elon, 2 years at a partner school, but we do have a 4-year engineering degree. And that's gained a lot of popularity primarily because it does not require a separate application or a secondary review process for your application if you're interested in engineering. If you're admitted to Elon at this point, you can pursue engineering. So really exciting as we see engineering programs become incredibly competitive, especially ABET programs. So we provide students with an ABET engineering opportunity that is accessible to students. You can double major with that too. We see entrepreneurship and engineering majors really frequently. Business still continues to be a big draw for students because we also don't have that secondary application for our business program. We're a top 40 ranked school of business, and we were one of only 2 schools in that top 40 category that doesn't require the secondary review process. So I think the name of the game across the board is really accessibility for students
Mhm.
in terms of access to majors and opportunities across campus. And so while we do have these distinct programs that are gaining popularity, I think the idea of not having to make that decision when you're 17 and having time to decide what you want to pursue is maybe what's become the biggest draw for a school like Elon. You're getting a quality education, but you have so much flexibility, and that's become such a big deal for students.
So you mentioned, nursing, engineering, and business not needing that dual application or the secondary review. Do you utilize test scores? Does that play a fact? Because I feel like a lot of the nursing, um, engineering type majors, they have some sort of test score minimum, that goes into play.
Yeah, great question. So we do for nursing. So for accreditation, we do, or we are required to have a test score on file for an applicant to our nursing program. We are a direct admit nursing program, so that's one reason why we require a test score. Otherwise, we are test optional across the board for all applicants. So engineering students, business students, those programs that historically do require that separate application, we don't review based on major. There are a couple exceptions in nursing because of that test score. We do have to look specifically at those students, and then performing arts programs require an audition. Otherwise, for our general admissions review process, we don't read based on your major. So we're not looking for particular test scores for particular intended majors.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I know we talked a lot about nursing when we visited and just how right now for a student that like thinks that would be a great nurse and would be a good fit, but needs something right now that's a little bit less competitive. Elon would be a good option, but it's trending upward that like
Yeah,
you're starting to see that it's becoming more competitive and that may have to change in the future.
we are. And that's, in many ways, it's antithetical to what we do across most of our majors. Again, as I've said previously, we want you to double major. We want you to find new academic and curricular things that excite you. And so nursing is the exception to that, where we do have to keep a pretty strict barrier because of the accreditation associated with that.
That makes sense. So you mentioned something when you were talking about nursing that I know that you are ready to just talk about how amazing it is at Elon, but your global program. So you said that nurses have the opportunity to do study abroad or participate in your global program. So I'd love for you to just explain what is Elon Global. And then again, I feel like we talk with a lot of colleges like through virtual visits or whatever IEC interaction we have, and they talk about study abroad, but like not the science students, not the nursing students because of the lab access. So please just talk about Elon Global and how overwhelmingly popular it is and some of the perks. And then maybe we can get into some of the specific majors, but
Yeah,
take it away.
absolutely. In fact, when you were asking me, what majors were drawing people to campus, it's a lot of our academic programs, but a lot of people choose Elon because of our study abroad program. So we have been highly, highly ranked for my entire tenure at Elon. We for most of those years, except the COVID years, we're number one. And there's a lot behind rankings, but I think that's an important piece. That ranking comes from an international organization that assesses a few different metrics. It is largely the volume of students that we send abroad. So we send 82% of our students abroad by the time they graduate. It's a lack of restrictions for students. So to your point, our nursing students, our engineering students, our students in these programs that have a really tight course sequencing that traditionally don't
Mhm.
have that opportunity do have that opportunity at Elon. In fact, I was part of a group that was starting our accelerated pathways to PA and PT program. Um, and part of that conversation while we were developing that program was, all right, this is great. We wanted them to accelerate their undergraduate curriculum, but when are they going to study abroad? So every time we start something new on campus, we want to make sure that study abroad remains accessible to our students. All of our D1 athletes study abroad. And then the last piece of that ranking is really about the opportunities that we have. So we have Elon centers in London, Florence, Shanghai, and Dunedin, New Zealand. And those are abroad opportunities naturally. Those are full semester experiences. And then we also partner with over 75 international schools. So University of Sunshine Coast in Australia is popular. St. Andrews in Scotland. Did you, or have you
I
been?
went there.
Oh,
I
that's
did study
amazing.
abroad at University of Sunshine Coast. Feel like I hear like every time someone mentions an Australia program and they say something else, I'm like, oh, but that's so great.
Yeah, incredibly popular with our students. So again, St. Andrews in Scotland, semester at sea is really popular
Mhm.
too, where you sail around the world. It's a little sweet life on deck, but you get to hit so many countries and cities during that time period. So that's a really popular option. But because of the way our academic calendar is structured, our students can also study abroad for a full semester, or they can study abroad for a winter term. During just the month of
Okay.
January, we send about 900 students abroad on really specific courses. We have an Eat, Pray, Love tour that goes throughout Europe. We have a business in the Caribbean course, a based on tourism program in the Caribbean as well. We have a business in the Pacific Rim program that focuses on Chinese and American relationships in the business sector. So really interesting and engaging experiences for students that happen during that winter term. And
Mhm.
then the last piece is Study USA. So we, in addition to the centers abroad, we also have centers in New York City, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and our newest one is Charlotte, which, you may be thinking Charlotte's an hour and a half from you. Why do you have a separate center there? But we found Charlotte is such a tremendous opportunity for our students, and the proximity to campus makes it even more appealing. So Charlotte is it's great for finance students because that city is,
Mhm.
as I would argue, the best place to be if you want to go for finance. All the major Manhattan firms have secondary headquarters down there, but we are also calling it Semester of Sport. It's a great space to be if you're interested in sport management. And so our
Mhm.
students are really excited about this experience. Panthers may not always be the best NFL program, but at least they're a professional franchise, and we're big Panthers fans. But so the Panthers are down there. The ACC moved their headquarters down there. There's just a lot of professional sports organizations headquartered in Charlotte, and so our students are down in Charlotte for a semester. They are taking classes, so this doesn't take them off track of a four-year graduation. They're doing these high-level internship experiences and living in the city. So those Study USA experiences give them the opportunity to dip their toes in the water before moving to one of those locations after graduation. So they have also become increasingly popular. So across all of those programs, we have great participation, great engagement, and that's a big reason why people choose to come to Elon.
Can you talk a little bit about the financial obligation for one of the study abroad programs? Is it folded into the tuition? Do the students have to pay for their travel? Like, is there housing available? Maybe specifically for like the Elon centers that like you have the location set up abroad.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are going to an Elon location or an Elon center abroad, you're paying Elon tuition. You do have the housing expenses associated with that, but we own apartments in London and in Florence, so that we're able to provide housing for students in those programs, but that is associated with the fee. But typically, if you're spending a semester in Elon Center, it's almost equivalent to a semester on campus. Naturally, all of your financial aid and your scholarships will transfer to those locations. And then if you're going to one of those partner institutions for a full semester, they are partners because we know that not only will the credits transfer, but your financial aid and scholarships will also transfer to those locations.
Okay.
There is a small fee to transfer those credits back to Elon, but some semesters it's less expensive. Some semesters it's more expensive because you are paying the tuition of that partner institution. So that's something
Yes.
to consider as you're making that decision. Those winter term courses that I mentioned, those are an additional fee. If you're on campus for winter term, we don't bill you separately for those credits. Winter term is included in the cost of tuition. It's a great benefit. It's a free tuition, or it's a free semester every 4 years. So it's a great value.
Okay.
But if you choose to study abroad for one of those winter terms, there is an additional fee, and that includes airfare, um, housing or lodging during the course of those programs, and most meals and cultural events associated with the programs are included in that. Those typically range anywhere from $3,500 to $7,000. So they are a significant expense, something to budget for. There's financial aid available for students who are pursuing those, but you will also never be able to travel this inexpensively again in your whole life. 3.5 weeks
For sure.
for kind of right at $7,000 is really an incredible value.
Yes. And I tell all of my students, consider study abroad, because
Yeah,
especially when you're our age,
yeah,
full-time job, if you have a family, like you just never get that opportunity to do that.
yeah.
Just even carve out a week to go to the beach seems like a
A
monumental
ton.
feat.
Yeah,
So, um, taking that opportunity to study abroad, immerse yourself, meet new people. And when you're out in the world applying for internships, if you're applying for jobs, I don't know how many times people would stop me and say, they'd read my resume and see what I've done with coursework, but they wanted to talk about Australia. Like, tell me all
yeah,
about that. So it definitely is a differentiator, maybe not between Elon students because that's the norm, but again, out in the real world, people will see that you took an opportunity to study in London or to study in France or go to Asia. And it's, going to be something that stands out on a resume, but just those, the maturity, the skills, they're definitely things you can't quantify. So
absolutely.
thank you for sharing about that, because I think that is such a huge piece of the Elon experience, and something that we tell our students that are interested in Elon is like, you need to take advantage of this. Or if you're someone who
Yeah,
that's something on your checklist when you're considering schools, is you want the opportunity to study abroad or a more global perspective, then Elon is the place. And the fact that Elon is, I would say it's a bit more rural and a little bit more like insular, you're not in a major metropolitan area, but that will get you out.
for sure. For sure.
So okay, my next question, and I know the answer to this, but I would love for you to speak to the importance of this, is do you track or consider demonstrated interest?
Yeah, we do track demonstrated interest. It's an important piece of our process. We have the privilege of being able to do that. We get a good number of applications, but we have enough admissions counselors that have small enough territories that we can spend time not only reading applications but also building relationships. We pride ourselves on being a very relationship-rich institution once you're here, and we believe that that really starts during the college admissions process. So I mentioned earlier, I work specifically with students from Ohio and Western Pennsylvania, and I have for 11 years. So the opportunity to travel and connect with those students, it's still my favorite part of the job. I have other responsibilities now, but those conversations give me a lot of joy, and I really enjoy that piece of it. So I do hope that you'll reach out to me and let me know that you saw this recording or are interested in Elon in general. And then we do track those in the least creepy way possible, but we do want to make sure that we are admitting students that want to be at Elon. That's our priority in the admissions process. So if we've had a conversation, we typically go back and make notes about that and identify those students as people who have kind of raised their hand and said, yeah, out of a bunch of colleges that you are probably also looking at, you've spent the time to engage with us in a meaningful way. That's important to us and something that we track through the process and can help students. Early decisions, naturally, the biggest hand raise, but even early
Mhm.
action students who indicate that Elon's their top choice, we want to make note of that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we advise all of our students to engage with the colleges with which they're interested in. If they aren't able to make maybe a high school visit or a regional visit, there are so many opportunities, and thanks to COVID, the opportunity to do
Yeah,
some virtual events or just a simple email. You don't, if you can get on campus, that's definitely the best way, especially at a place like Elon. I mean, I've
yeah,
heard so many wonderful things, but to actually step on campus and, see students on campus and the signs for events and fraternity sororities. I mean, just like all that different type of stuff is very impactful. But that's not in everybody's budget. And it's not necessarily like, again, you're not flying into New York City, taking the train and
yeah,
getting there. It takes a little bit of, of planning to
yeah,
get there. So if you cannot make it there, just something like this and reaching out to Ginny and letting her know, like, I watched your Estrella virtual visit. I joined the, admissions YouTube or something like that,
yeah.
would be really impactful. And it is a two-way street, it's like dating. You want to make
Yeah.
sure that, if you just sent a text to someone without any context, again, like sending your application, like there needs to be some reciprocity and like, showing that you're genuinely interested. I know about Elon. I've done a little bit of research. This is why I want to come to school. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
I think that's something that we want our students to consider. You know, we don't want you to only show love to the schools that give that, you know, take into effect demonstrated interest, but, you know, being mindful of that, especially maybe if you're a junior watching this and you're starting to plan some visits for the winter break or spring break, like where could I get the most bang for my buck? Like these are my top few schools. If I visit here, they're going to care. If I visit Ohio State, they don't care, you know, like you got
So
to kind of
many.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, you got to know where to invest your time and maybe, you know, your travel dollars. And Elon would be a great place to get your feet on campus if you can. And if not, just reach out and make sure that you make that connection. All right. Here's a different one. Do you have any extremely niche programs that you could tell us about? And this could be maybe majors or maybe like an alt start program or like a fun
Yeah.
student success initiative that just is very unique to Elon.
Yeah. Um, so major wise, dance science is fairly unique. There are few programs in the country that have dance science, and that's really the intersection, just as it sounds, of dance and science, and it's really exercise science. So it's looking at the muscles of the body that are used in dance specifically. So students go on from that program to work as physical therapists for theater companies. They will go on to own their own studios, but even for students interested in choreography, it can be incredibly helpful to know the movements of the body and how the muscular system interacts with that. So that's a really unique program. Again, I can count on maybe one hand the programs that exist across the country in dance science. We have a really neat eco village that I'm really excited about. That's a little new, and I have not heard of other institutions that have something quite like this. So it's a living learning community. A lot of campuses have those, but we just built essentially a tiny house community. They're a little too big to be qualified specifically as tiny houses, but it is a residential opportunity for our sophomore students to live out by Loy Farm, which is our solar and organic farm on campus. Each home was built in a different sustainable building style. Some of them designed by our students in the sustainable building courses. They focus on water reclamation and certainly renewable energy sources to fuel the use of those spaces. But that's a really neat living learning community that just opened. We have them across campus on a variety of different topics, but the
Okay.
students have their own community garden and so things like that are really intentional. Study abroad is not unique, but as we've discussed, that's a big deal for us, and the way we pursue
Mhm.
it is often unique. But yeah, I think dance science is the one that comes initially to mind as unique programs. There are a lot of
For
different
the
majors.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. For the Eco Village, does that, do you have to be like a junior or senior, or can anybody apply for that, or do you have to be a certain major?
So it's typically for sophomores. You have to apply for it and indicate why you're interested in living there.
Okay.
We are really jazzed about this, and it's such a cool space. We have a lot of students, because we're in North Carolina, not totally dissimilar from Ohio, who are interested in local agriculture and sustainable initiatives. And so we have an existing sustainability LLC on campus, living learning community. We've got a great community garden for all of our students, but this is a new initiative to really bring that into practice and have students living out their values while they're in college, so that then there's even more opportunity to translate that after graduation. So that's, I think, the newest big initiative for us. Mentorship is a big piece
Cool.
for us. So many schools talk about mentorship, but we pursue it really earnestly. So that's another big initiative on campus to make sure that students, incoming students and current students, know the value of mentorship. I think we have found in focus groups that our seniors know what mentorship has meant to them at Elon, but we're trying to make sure that our first year students can articulate that and recognize mentorship when they're seeing it on campus, because it happens constantly at a place like Elon.
That's great. That's really, again, something that's not tangible. You know, you can't really
Yeah.
say like there's a metric for mentorship, but to know that a student has that support, whether it be in the classroom or with a peer or outside in the community, that's really a huge thing to consider. Okay, we talked a little bit about application because we're approaching November 1. So no matter when you are watching this, if you are applying to Elon and you decide, you already mentioned your test optional, so you put your tests, you don't put your tests, your GPA, all of the great things you do, you fill out the Elon supplements. Are you automatically considered for merit aid, or do you offer merit aid? I should ask that as well.
Yeah, great question. So there are 2 scholarships for which, and I should say 3, including our international students, 3 scholarships for which all students are automatically considered. Test scores are not required for those scholarships. And that's the Presidential Scholarship, the Elon Engagement Scholarship, and then for our international students, our International Scholars Award. So those are 3 big ones. You don't really have to think about those necessarily because we're doing the work on our end to identify students for those. And then we do have some cohorted programs that do require a separate application, and that is due with your first year application. So that's the honors program, our fellows program, which is essentially the honors college within our academic areas. And then our scholars programs are pre-professional in focus. There are a lot of different options. We're so fortunate to have a campus that gets really excited to provide scholarship funding to students. So we have a lot of different experiences and a lot of different scholarships and fellows programs. So I encourage students to review those on the Common App. It'll ask if you want to apply for scholarships, and then you'll see the drop down if you indicate yes of all the different programs that might align best with your interests. We do also have a couple niche programs that require an application a little further down the road, but still during your senior year of high school. That's our Odyssey program, which is our endowed scholars program. It's primarily based on demonstrated financial need. And then our accelerated programs, which are accelerated master's or doctoral opportunities in PA, PT, accounting, business analytics, and law. We have an accelerated law program that is 5.5 years instead of the traditional 7 to your JD. So there's a couple different buckets of scholarships, some that you don't have to think about, some that you have to apply for when you apply to Elon, and then others that are a little more niche that you follow up with down the road.
Okay, I'm typing all of this out.
It's a lot.
So my
Yeah.
colleague Jamie did this incredible resource, and it's all the hidden scholarships. And we say hidden meaning not automatic. So if you apply somewhere, look for these scholarships, maybe on their website for business majors or certain demographics. So we always try to ask, like, again, it sounds like the presidential and the Elon engagement are ones that are automatic, like just based on your application. And then the honors, fellows, and pre-professional programs, they have additional, like through the drop down. Are those all have like a monetary tie, or is that just like to get into the honors program or to be considered for the fellows? Like, is there a
They do.
financial?
So there
Okay.
is a financial consideration with each of those. Honors is essentially our honors college, but not in the same sense as like a Penn State Honors College. You're not taking a totally different subset of courses. There are some classes specifically for our honors students, but it's really for students who are invested in doing undergraduate research. So there
Okay.
is a significant scholarship value with that. And then our fellows program, especially for those who either are not at the academic level of the honors program or are not dedicated to undergraduate research in the same way. The fellows program is essentially the honors college that exists within each school. So we have business fellows, communication fellows, engineering fellows, etc. And then the scholars programs are kind of a step down from there. And those are focused on, pre-health scholars, legal profession scholars for our pre-law students. There's one specifically for students interested in sports broadcasting. So they get quite narrow
Okay.
as part of that process.
Okay, great. That's awesome. So we will definitely keep that in mind for our students that are looking at
Yeah.
Elon, and maybe financial consideration is something that needs to be looked at. You talked a little bit about like drawing from Colorado, and we see that there's a lot of cross application between like Miami of Ohio, Elon, and CU Boulder,
Yeah.
which seems so random to me. Um, but again, they're very different, but I feel like probably a very similar vibe. I've never been to CU Boulder, so I can't really tell. But again, a lot of kids that have Miami and Elon also have CU Boulder and vice versa. So very interesting statistic, but thank you for sharing that as well.
Yeah.
All right, we're about at time, so I will have one last question for you, and you can actually pick which one because I feel like some people gravitate towards one or the other. Um, who has been the most exciting guest or speaker on campus, or the most interesting alumnus?
Ooh.
And if
That
that's
is
a
a
stump,
great
if
one.
I'm stumping you, then I can think of a different question.
Yeah. Um, no, I love that one because we've had the most famous ones who are not always the most engaging speakers. Maya Angelou, while she was still living, was a gem of a speaker again, absolutely famous in her own right. But I think she was one of the most poignant conversations I have heard. Yeah, she might be on up there. David Gergen was also really motivational, and David Gergen, especially his view on politics and his perspective there, was really helpful as we were approaching the 2020 election and all of that. So he's been on campus several times working with our students. We're a very civically engaged campus, and so that was really meaningful. But I'm gonna have to go with someone who I actually graduated with Elon from, and I'm kind of answering both questions here, so I apologize.
That's
But
fine.
our one of our most notable alumni who graduated in 2013, and we have quite a few, but I'm gonna pick her because I think she's just incredibly talented, is Jenna Claire Mason Moffat, who is Glenda on the main stage production of Wicked. We have an incredible musical theater program, and she was also our commencement speaker last year. And it was
Cool.
so wonderful to see her. I mean, pinnacle of her career, right? She was born to play Glenda, and she had some really wonderful words for our soon to be graduates about failure and resiliency and what that means, even as you look at somebody who you perceive to be so successful and knowing what she put in to get there. And I think that's a big theme for us, resiliency. We want to make sure that we are graduating students that are here for the world and the long haul, in everything that life will throw at them. And so her message there was really lovely. And she has an incredible voice, and so part of her speech was in song, and it was fabulous.
Oh, cool. That is awesome. I just saw on TV that it was yesterday a commercial for Wicked. It was like a movie, I
Yeah,
believe, like an adaptation. So that's really cool. Well, thank you for sharing that, Jenny. Thank you for all of the
yeah,
wonderful information about Elon. Again, one of our favorites and one of the favorites of our students apparently this year as well. So I'm sure this will be a wildly popular
yeah,
segment for
great.
them to watch. But if you need anything, if you're watching this, please reach out to Jenny. She's fabulous.
Please do.
And best of luck in the remainder of the fall. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
All right, good talking to you, Jenny. Thanks again.
Bye bye.
Bye.